Hey, quick little walkthrough of what we see on the screen here and how that's going to look at our assignments. So we're looking at the first one. Here's a graph and it's showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, because each of these is going to be a week. We're going from the 21st of September to the 28th of September to the 5th of October. So each one of these little dashes is a week, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dashes shown. However, we're looking at 5 weeks because if we look from here to here, that's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So let's look at what's happened. The value of the Canadian dollar back then actually was, we were above the US somehow, and we started at $1 US and we went up to $1.04 US. So although it went up and down and up and down, the general trend is that it's going up, and it fluctuates a bit. That's the up and down. But over those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, we've gone up to from $1 to $1.04. So we're looking in 5 weeks, went from $1 to $1.04. So that's an increase of 4 cents in 5 weeks. So I've got my units here, dollars per week, and it's going to divide 0.04 divided by 5, and I get 0.008 cents per week. Let's look at the calculator. 0.04 divided by 5, a little here, 0.04 divided by 5 gives me 0.008. So it's less than a penny a week, right? Because 0.01 would be a penny, so less than a penny a week. Let's compare it to this one. This one, we've got things going up and down, and it's over 2 years now, starting at 85 cents in November 2005, and then we're going all the way 2 years later. So here's a tick for September 2007, and then we'd think this one would be into November 2007, so 2 years later. And 2 years is, there's 52 weeks in a year, because I'd rather do the same scale as weeks. So there's 52 weeks in a year, so 104 weeks in those 2 years. And how much did we go up? We went from 0.85, and it definitely went up and then down again. But in the general trend, it's going up. And it went from 0.85 to 1. So that's 15 cents in 2 years. So let's look at that. So in the 2-year graph, we went from 0.85 dollars to $1, which is about 15 cents in 2 years. But I want to compare per week, because the first one I did per week. So I'm going to look in 2 years. That's 104 weeks, because there's 52 weeks per year. So the increase in 2 years is 15 cents, and 104 weeks is about 0.001 per week, which is much less than this guy, right? The only other thing I'd say is on the first one, it started at $1. That's a nice number to start with, because $1.04 is 4 cents more, which is actually 4% higher. So it's nice to start at 1. That just happened to be here, but we'll see that in our assignment as well. So let's look at the assignment next. Before I go there, extrapolation, we could say, what would happen, do you think, in this one in the next 2 weeks? We could say, well, if it's going up at $0.085 dollars per week, we'd think to do the same thing the next week and the next week, and would make a guess based on our graph that this is going to keep doing the same sort of trend, although it could go up and down. Just before we see our assignment, remember in graphs we've got some problems, and this happens a lot, that this graph, for example, looks like everything's going up and down a little bit, but not a big deal. But what happens sometimes is people get rid of the scale on the left, or they don't start at 0, and they zoom in on the top section of the graph. So it's like zooming in on this top section of the graph to make the changes look more dramatic. So it looks like August is way lower than the other months based on this, but all they did was they started the graph up at like 800 or 900, and they zoomed in the top little section to make it look like a bigger difference. Okay, so just careful with that can happen. And for assignment, we're just looking for what these indexes are. Indices is plural of an index, and it all is talking about numbers, so just be careful of that. And we're just basic describe what these are, not a fancy definition, just enough to understand what these things are. And it's nice to quote where you got it from. And then we have a graph here where we're looking at the employment index, and they start at 100. That does not mean there's 100 jobs. It's just an easy comparison to say that if we're have more jobs, then we're up at 102, which is 2% higher. So they're trying to use it as a percentage scale. And then we're looking between 1, 2, 3 years here, 3 and a bit, but we basically focus over the 3 years. And there's some questions here that you can have a look at. Okay.